Thanks for joining me on the news. Let's begin with Russian squatting at embassy not a threat, Australia says. 5 men confirmed dead on missing Titanic sub. Western nations pledged aid to war-torn Ukraine. 4 Thais charged over trafficking in Malaysia, and United Nations puts Russia on list of shame for killing children. On politics, a lone Russian diplomat has been squatting on the site where Moscow wanted to build a new embassy in Canberra before Australia blocked the plan. On Friday, Australian media published photos of the man wearing sweatpants and Nautica jacket and smoking as he wandered at the mostly empty construction site. Security forces are unable to remove the man because he has diplomatic immunity, even though the land is no longer rent out to Russia, reports said. The government last week rushed through legislation blocking Russia's lease on the site because it was too close to parliament and a risk to national security. Anthony Albanese, Australian Prime Minister, said the envoy posed no such danger. Australia will stand up for our values and we will stand up for our national security, and a bloc standing in the cold on a bit of grass in Canberra is not a threat to our national security, he said, according to reports on Friday in a courtyard outside his office in Parliament. The man has supposedly been living on the site in a portable cabin since Sunday when passers-by first saw police outside the fenced site in Canberra's Yarralumla diplomatic district. On Thursday, it was reported that the man was a Russian diplomat and being watched by police who were unable to arrest him. The Russian embassy declined to comment on the reports. Albanese said the issue will be resolved but did not give details. Russia says it has spent $5.5 million on the site since it was originally granted the lease in 2008. Finished works including fencing and a single perimeter building that was to be part of a planned complex of numerous buildings. Moscow last week accused Australia of Russophobic hysteria for withdrawing the embassy lease. On Wednesday, it banned 48 Australians from entering Russia. In February, reports said Australia had silently ejected a huge Russian spy ring whose members were posing as diplomats. The Australian Security Intelligence Organisation, the country's major domestic spy agency, revealed days earlier it had detected and disrupted a major spy network. The intelligence organisation has not named the country responsible. Talking science and technology, the 5 on board the Titan were Stockton Rush, OceanGate's founder and chief executive officer who was piloting the vessel, a United Kingdom billionaire businessman and explorer Hamish Harding, 58, Pakistani-born businessman Shahzada Dawood, 48, and his 19-year-old son Sulaiman, both UK citizens, and French oceanographer and renowned Titanic expert Paul-Henri Nargeolet, 77, who had visited the wreck dozens of times. The 5 crew members on board the missing submersible Titan died in a catastrophic implosion. The U.S. Coast Guard has confirmed it lost communications with a support ship less than 2 hours into 4,000 meters dive to the Titanic shipwreck on Sunday. The remotely operated vehicle ROV located pieces of debris from the Titan on the seabed about 500 meters from the bow of the Titanic wreck on Thursday morning, Rear Admiral John Mauga, the first Coast Guard district commander, said, according to reports. The debris was analyzed and confirmed to belong to the Titan, and family members were informed there had been no survivors. Admiral Morga added that the bodies of the 5 deceased crew members may never be found. The Titan submersible vanished 105 minutes after launching from the Polar Prince icebreaker research ship about 900 miles off the coast of Cape Cod on Sunday morning. The Titan's twin communication system, text and electronic pings suddenly stopped communicating with the support vessel, and no further sign of life was detected until Thursday's grim discovery. A sweeping search effort involving Canadian Boeing P-8 Poseidon and C-130 Hercules reconnaissance aircraft, 10 vessels and underwater sonar buoys had been combing an area of the North Atlantic Ocean twice the size of Connecticut for the past several days. Slim hopes of finding survivors fell when the U.S. Coast Guard revealed on Thursday morning that a debris field had been found near the Titanic shipwreck, but a remote-operated vehicle, ROV, searching for the missing Titan submersible. It was too soon to say whether there will be a criminal investigation into the loss of life, he added. On Russian-Ukraine war, foreign donors have promised $6 60 billion euros, that's 66 billion US dollars, for Ukraine over a multi-year period to assist the country rebuild following Russia's February 2022 invasion. The commitments were made at the two-day Ukraine Recovery Conference in London, were mostly comprised of a 50 billion euro, 55 billion US dollars commitment from the European Union announced on Tuesday, and new promises from the United Kingdom and the United States. British Foreign Minister James Cleverly said, "We had not envisaged this to be a pledging conference. Nevertheless, today at this conference, we can announce a combined 60 billion euros in support to Ukraine." Closely 16 months since Russia started its full-scale invasion, homes, hospitals and critical infrastructure lie in ruins and Kyiv faces years, possibly decades of rebuilding. The World Bank has estimated the cost of reconstruction at over 400 billion US dollars, a figure increasing daily alongside the human toll of the war. Emphasizing the vast scale of the task, diplomats and political leaders at the London conference urged private sector companies to invest as well. Approximately 500 companies from 42 countries have vowed to play their part, Cleverly said. Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal, who was at the conference, appreciated the delegates for their financial backing, adding that Ukraine will not wait for the end of the war to begin rebuilding. Ukraine's initial focus will be its energy sector, which has come under sustained attack in successive Russian raids, leaving families in the dark and unable to heat their homes during the bitterly cold winter months. The U.S. promise of over 1.3 billion US dollars in new aid included over 500 million US dollars to restore and improve the country's energy grid. The conference also touched on issues such as Ukraine's future membership of the European Union, with officials emphasizing the need for the country to make additional progress to meet conditions such as reducing corruption and reforming the judiciary. Such reforms will send a powerful message to investors that they will get the transparency, fairness and the functioning institutions they need to invest in Ukraine, said European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken also emphasized the significance of anti-corruption efforts by Ukraine, a country long plagued by graft. He said some of the money pledged by the U.S. will also go toward upgrading ports and border infrastructure and digitizing customs procedures to make it harder to break the rules. Talking in human trafficking, 4 Thai citizens have been indicted under Malaysia's anti-trafficking laws over mass graves and transit camps for refugees that were found in Hili, a remote jungle along the Thai-Malaysian border over 8 years ago. Early on Friday morning, the men, aged between 30 and 58, arrived in court in Kangar, in Malaysia's northern state of Perlis, according to reports. A counter-interpreter later read out the charges to them, which together connected to the trafficking of 2 Myanmar nationals, Zadul Islam and Mo Bilay. The paper said no pleas were recorded. The first of the mass graves, containing over 30 bodies, was found in April 2015 among makeshift camps near the town of Wang Kilian that had been set up by traffickers bringing people across the border. After an intensified search, dozens more graves, many of them Rohingya refugees from Myanmar and containing more than one body, were found. Thailand and Malaysia carried out a joint investigation into the camps, and Thailand convicted 62 defendants, including 9 government officials, over the deaths and trafficking of Rohingya and Bangladeshis to Malaysia via Thailand in 2017. Saifuddin Nasution Ismail, Home Affairs Minister, said the 4 Thais were extradited on Thursday and were among 10 people that Malaysia had sought for extradition in 2017. In a statement on Thursday, he said Malaysia was committed to maintaining border security and viewed issues of cross-border crime seriously, particularly human trafficking and migrant smuggling. Malaysia set up a Royal Commission of Inquiry (RCI) to investigate the tragedy in 2019, with 48 witnesses giving evidence. The probe found that while no Malaysian enforcement officials, public servants or local citizens were involved in trafficking syndicates, there was a gross negligence on the part of border patrols who had botched to notice the camps. Talking child's rights, according to reports, the United Nations has placed Russia's military and allied armed groups on its list of shame over the killing and maiming of hundreds of children in its war against Ukraine, but Israeli forces have been left off the list despite killing over 40 Palestinian children last year. Human rights organizations had made repeated requests that Israel be added to the United Nations blacklist over the killing and maiming of Palestinian children in the occupied West Bank. On Thursday, Palestinian ambassador to the UN Riyad Mansour called UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres' decision to leave Israel off the shame list a big mistake. In the UN's annual report on the treatment of children in conflict zones, which was circulated to members of the United Nations Security Council on Thursday, Guterres said he was appalled by the high number of grave violations against children in Ukraine in 2022. According to reports from those who had seen a copy of the report, 477 children were listed as killed in Ukraine last year, including 136 deaths directly attributed to Russian forces and affiliated groups. According to the reports, the Ukrainian armed forces were responsible for killing 80 children. Of the remaining child victims, neither of the two warring sides could be blamed with certainty. The children were mostly killed by attacks, the United Nations report said. The body also confirmed that Russian forces and allied groups maimed 518 children in Ukraine and carried out 480 attacks on schools and hospitals. Russian armed forces also used 91 children as human shields, according to the report. Ukrainian armed forces maimed 175 children and carried out 212 attacks on schools and hospitals. Ukraine's forces were not placed on the list. The United Nations chief said in the report that he was deeply concerned by the number of Palestinian children killed by Israeli forces in 2022. According to the report, 42 Palestinian children were killed and 933 injured in 2022 by Israeli forces. In 2021, Israeli forces killed 78 Palestinian children. Israel has never been on the UN list of countries shamed for killing children. And here are more stories. Beijing records hottest June in history. China has issued a red alert for heat, the highest in its color-coded alert system for northern parts of the country after Beijing recorded its hottest ever June day. On Friday morning, some 185 red alerts were issued for northern and eastern China, including Beijing, the nearby city of Tianjin, and the provinces of Hebei and Shandong. It is the first time since 2014 that the red alert has been used in Beijing, home to closely 22 million people, according to government weather services. The temperature in capital was hovering about 40 degrees Celsius, 104 degrees Fahrenheit, after reaching a June record of 41.1 degrees Celsius, 106 degrees Fahrenheit on Thursday. The previous June high dated from June 10, 1961, when the temperature hit 40.6 degrees Celsius or 105 degrees Fahrenheit. Beijing residents are accustomed to scorching summers, but temperatures across China have been unusually high in recent months, with scientists saying the heat is being exacerbated by climate change. According to China's meteorological service in the coastal province of Shandong, which borders the Yellow Sea, the temperature reached 43 degrees Celsius, 109 degrees Fahrenheit on Thursday. In Africa, Sonko files suit in France against Macky Sall. Against Senegalese President Macky Sall, a 170-page-long complaint has been launched. His major opponent, Ousmane Sonko, has filed a criminal complaint in France for crimes against humanity allegedly committed between March 2021 and June 2023. Sonko's lawyer broke down the accusations during a press on Thursday. Juan Branco, Senegalese opposition leader Ousmane Sonko's lawyer, said, "For the past month, we have been conducting a lengthy investigation with the participation of hundreds of Senegalese, whom I would like to thank. They were citizens, civil servants, people working in all the country's administrations who have provided us with evidence, documents, contracts, videos, testimonies that have enabled us to establish the existence of 60 crimes of murder considered to be crimes against humanity." During the press conference, French-Spaniard lawyer Juan Branco projected videos and photos, some of them containing worrying footage supposedly showing Senegalese protesters getting killed or severely injured during the deadly unrest earlier in June. While the government figure for June is 16 dead, Amnesty International has counted 23 fatalities and the opposition tally stands at 30. Sonko alleges that deadly clashes following his sentencing to jail time this month are the newest step in a generalized and systematic attack on the civilian population of Senegal since March 2021. He was convicted 2 years in prison for corrupting the youth. A beauty salon worker accused him of death threats and rape. The fatal protests following the court judgments are the worst Senegal has seen in years, following a former outburst 2 years ago when at least 12 died. Let's take a quick break. When I come back, I'll bring you more stories. Stay with us. You're welcome back. I bring you stories from Nigeria. Presidential poll, INEC intentionally deleted results, said PDP. Yesterday, there was a mild chaos at the Presidential Election Petition Court (PEPC) over claims by the People's Democratic Party (PDP) and its presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar that the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) purposely deleted presidential election results from the bimodal voter accreditation system (BVAS) machines. Atiku and presidential candidate of the Labour Party Peter Obi are presently before Presidential Elections Petition Court, where they are contesting the emergence of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as winner of the February 25th presidential election on the platform of the governing All Progressives Congress (APC). It began when Atiku's witness, Hitler Nwala, told the court seat in Abuja that the electoral umpire deliberately deleted all the results of the presidential elections from the BVAS machines of the Federal Capital Territory (FCT) under the guise of preparing for the March 18th governorship election. Nwala, a forensic expert who was the 26th witness for Atiku, claimed that he inspected 110 BVAS devices used during the presidential elections in the FCT, and all the machines he inspected had their data intentionally deleted. When Abubakar Mahmood, counsel to INEC, presented a BVAS machine to the court for demonstration, which he asked the witness to access and show proof that the data was deleted, Nwala refused to operate the machine on grounds that it against professional ethics for him to do so in court. He maintained during cross-examination by INEC's lawyer Abubakar Mahmood that it was pointless for the electoral body to have deleted the presidential election results data from BVAS machines used in the FCT because the FCT did not hold governorship elections. Led in his evidence by the lead counsel to the petitioners, Atiku and PDP Chris Uche-san, the subpoenaed witness, told the court that he inspected 110 BVAS machines as sample material from the FCT and submitted a report of his probe carried out on the BVAS. Now, NLC fumes over planned electricity tariff surge. The Nigeria Labour Congress (NLC) has kicked against the supposed plan to add electricity tariff by 40% on July 1st. The Congress described the move as insensitive and callous, saying it reflected an organized indifference to the well-being of consumers, especially the masses. On Thursday in Abuja, the NLC said this in a statement by its comrade Joe Ajaero. The statement reads, and I quote, "The plan to increase electricity tariff by 40% by July 1st is both insensitive and callous and reflects an organized indifference to the well-being of consumers, especially the poor ones." The massive increase is explained away as a response to the over 100% increase in the pump price of premium motor spirit (PMS). Details reveal a movement in inflation from 16.9% to 22.41, threatening to nearly 30, and a shift in exchange rate from 441 naira to 750 naira. We believe not even these figures are a justification for this reckless proposed tariff increase. The issue of capacity to pay and quality of service delivery are not only relevant, but superior to any rationalization by market logic. The service providers, in spite of sundry support, have not been able to meet the threshold of 5,000 megawatts. Coupled with this, there have been surreptitious increases without notice in violation of status. The inherent risk in the new regime of tariff is that there is no control, implying that by August, consumers will pay new rates. The other risk is that by the time other product or service rendering entities come up with their new prices or rates, the ordinary person will have been compacted into dust. We will want to advise apostles of the market who have called NLC all sorts of names to check their conscience. The rate at which they are going is highly combative and combustible, with the contemplation of payment of school fees in tertiary institutions and increases in privately owned ones is addition to other cost tariffs on the way life in Nigeria could truly be halcyon. The market economies, which the government fundamentalists seek to emulate, have in place socio-economic safeguards, which we do not have. In light of this, our advice is that this proposed tariff hike should be shelved for our collective safety. And finally, on the news, Nigeria ready to address health challenges, Vice President said. Nigeria has stated its preparedness to tackle the fears surrounding the financing of primary healthcare system in the country. On Thursday, Vice President Kashim Shettima gave the assurance at a meeting with the chairman of Dangote Foundation, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, co-chair of Bill Gates Foundation, Bill Gates, and some governors under the auspices of Nigeria Governors Forum at the banquet hall of the State House in Abuja. Shettima, who noted that polio is one of the main primary healthcare challenges in the country, revealed that the proposal is to provide timely domestic financing for the procurement of vaccines, which couldn't have come sooner, to boosting our industrial capacity to produce vaccines. While acknowledging the threats facing Nigeria in the area of polio, he indicated that Nigeria's 3-dose pentavalent vaccine coverage has improved from 33% in 2016 to 57% in 2021. According to him, the variant polio virus has fallen in Nigeria by 84% from 2021, declining to fewer than 200 cases in 2022. He therefore applauded the states that have achieved high category immunization coverage, which is between 60% and 80% of the aimed demography, and the number of states has expanded from 12 to 21 in 5 years. Giving further assurance, the Vice President said, and I quote, "The federal government and our respective state governments are going to set in place a transparent process and structure to undo the reality of the country as one with one of the highest proportions of non-immunized infants in the world over the last decade." Shettima emphasized that the federal government is committed to eliminating variant polio virus by the end of the year, ensuring that every Nigerian child is covered in the routine immunization campaigns. The Vice President then expressed the appreciation of the federal government to partners such as the Aliko Dangote Foundation and Bill Gates Foundation, whose empathy shone through that uncertain period in Nigeria's history. Gates revealed that his foundation is planning to commit $7 billion to Africa in the next 4 years to support routine immunization in Nigeria and the Global Polio Eradication Initiative in northern Nigeria earlier in his remarks at the interactive session. Also speaking, Alhaji Aliko Dangote stated that Gates and himself have been partnering with both the federal and state governments for several years, supporting the efforts in eradicating polio and improving routine immunization, nutrition and primary health care in the country. A recap of major stories says Russian squatting at embassy not a threat, says Australia. 5 men confirmed dead on missing Titanic sub. Western nations pledge aid to war-torn Ukraine. 4 thighs charged over trafficking in Malaysia. And United Nations puts Russia on list of shame for killing children. That's all on the news. Thanks for watching. I'm Lois Drake.